Hey there, Groovesters, Groove Stars, Ridgely here with another Lessons from the CEO, and I'm super excited to welcome a dear friend, founder of Energetic Solutions, who has a tremendous background as an entrepreneur with lots of very interesting history, which we will get a chance to hear about for a little while. Sheevaun Moran, thank you so much for joining us. We deeply appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know there was a time where there was a beginning to all of this way back when. So take us back a little bit. What was it that got you going? What did the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey look like? How did you get the bug, or was it always just there?
I got the bug when I was 11, when I wanted a sweater that my parents wouldn't buy me. And they said, go figure out how to earn it. And a lot of entrepreneurs get their start this way. And, a girl, not very big, super shy, and started a lawn mowing route. And then I lived on the East Coast, and that lawn mowing route became a lawn mowing and snow shoveling route. And then I sold that to my brother for a t-shirt. Not a very good sale, I learned.
He was bigger than you, right? He could maybe do that a little better or something, or who knows?
He was bigger, but I was done. And then I created another thing where I delivered stuff on my bicycle all around this little tiny town. And then I got out into the world, and everyone, really convinced me that I needed to have the job thing. And I needed to work for somebody else. I really didn't know there was a distinction of somebody else versus myself. I just knew that I needed to be in control of my destiny. And every time I worked for somebody else, I run a lot of things. And then I moved to California, and I worked for this guy who invented all kinds of accessories for computers, before there were accessories for computers. And he was the first inventor of those. And then we grew that. There were 12 of us, and we grew that to, I don't know, 150 million, 140 million, something like that, and sold it to Rubbermaid. And I thought, I want to do this. I do that. I want to do that again. And so I did that 4 more times. And then one of the times I was traveling so much, every travel jockey has done this, right? In the middle of the night, you're refilling your little bottles of stuff. I wanted to solve that problem. And I happen to know a lot of people in the industry of, I was building a pharma company, but in the pharma company industry, there's also the people who deliver to have products for drugstores. And so I started selling their trial and travel size accessories before they started selling them on the shelves. So I started a business doing that because I didn't want to keep filling them at midnight, my little containers at midnight.
Necessity, the mother of invention, so to speak.
Exactly. And so I started a catalog company, and we started doing great. I was interviewed all over the world. We were getting some really good traction. All of the travel groups, were starting to pick us up. And then American Express ripped off the whole idea. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. I did such a great thing that somebody big ripped me off. I don't have what it takes to make it big. And I'm not that inspired to continue. So I actually just left it. Abandon it. Mm-hmm. And so each thing has been born from a seed of an idea or a problem that I had and that I was solving. And so Energetic Solutions came about through me getting sick, misdiagnosed, nearly dying from blood poisoning, and healing myself, because I figured if I could grow businesses, I could heal myself. And sure enough, that was true. You just have to know how the formula works. And then reverse engineered that. And then I was doing healing stuff, energy healing. And that became the genesis of Energetic Solutions. And really what has occurred is the people who wanted this energy healing thing really wanted their business healed. And so that's when it really became something that I was even more excited about. I trained thousands of people in this energy stuff, and I've helped thousands of people in the energy stuff, and then, you know, businesses as well. So that's kind of the genesis, but it was, each one was born out of my own pain point.
Don't you find that that's so often the case with the entrepreneur? They either have an idea that came from something that they needed or they saw was very needed and said, I can do that.
Yeah.
And yet, a lot of times, far more often than not, people are not able to do that. So with that in mind, what would you say are the top characteristics of someone who can do it, who becomes a successful entrepreneur?
They're willing to take action sooner. They will go outside of all the lines to find a way to make sure their product or idea or program or something gets in the hands of another. And they'll start talking to people. Now, I find a lot of people actually don't want to talk to other people. There was somebody on my calendar today, and I was like, I don't know who this is. Who is this? What is it? How did this come about? And, you know, my assistant said, well, you sent it to me. And I was just like, I don't know who this is. So I had to get on the phone and admit that I had no clue who this person was. and and my team is sitting across from me while I'm doing this, because we're trying to solve this other dilemma. And they're like, should we go? And I was like, no, stay, because I'm going to actually set up another meeting, because I need to know who this person is first. And so I had to be willing to be vulnerable, ignorant enough, stupid enough, whatever, look bad to say, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are and why we're talking. And that's kind of how I started. And, you know, they all looked up at me and I was like, that's all I got. I mean, I could have just played along and we could have tried to figure it out from there. But what is pretending going to get somebody?
Right. Did you finally figure it all out?
We did. And he's somebody that I actually want to talk to, that I didn't want to talk to in front of my team. Oh. So it was perfect. We found another time, but it was the perfect start. And most people wouldn't have gotten on the phone. They wouldn't have, you know, followed through with that. So another key thing is follow through. And that was the lecture today with my team, is follow through until, if that's the only thing you get done today, then that's the only thing you get done today. The follow through is one of the biggest obstacles in a time when we have the most tools that we don't use or do or access or stick with. And then I think the other thing is you darn well better learn how to sell.
Yeah. How did that work for you? Tell us a little bit about your journey in learning how to sell.
Well, I don't know. I would say I watched my dad. I went to, you know, he was an insurance salesman, and he said he never worked a day in his life. And when I think about it, I think, oh, that's the best attitude I could have ever learned from. It's not how it looked from when I was a kid, but okay, cool. And I went on calls with him. I would sit in the office and answer the phones. I would do anything to just learn stuff. And I was just so curious about learning things. And so I think I got a lot from him. And then I actually I unlearned how to do it when I was out in the business world, interestingly.
Mm-hmm.
And it took,
what do you mean you unlearned it? In other words, they took it away from you kind of by pushing you down, or what do you mean by that?
Well, so I think I unlearned it, one, because you know, sadly and interestingly and curiously for my brain, a lot of people don't want to be sold to by a woman, right? And it still happens today, to this day. So you got to learn how to be different and better, right? And then you have to learn. You had to learn their way, and their way wasn't the way that was actually going to work for me as the person that was going to sell the products. And when I started to learn to ditch those things is when things started to work. And so I actually became really well known in the pharmaceutical sphere as somebody who would go in and help sales teams do better by the weird Sheevaun way.
The weird Sheevaun way. Okay. And,
you
and
know,
you're going to
and it
share
was
any
really, it
secrets
was
of,
energy. So here's the truth of it is it was the essence, it was the energy stuff. And I would actually talk about this before I was really doing this in the energy world, and doing this in a specific way around energy, and it was always energy. And so I've actually interviewed some of those people that I've worked with, and they're like, oh yeah, that weird woo stuff that you would do long before anybody was talking about weird woo stuff. And like, oh yeah, you'd come and sit in the meeting and you sit with your legs crossed and you do these things. And I was like, really? They say, yeah, that's the thing that's the glue. And you always made our team better. You always helped them sell in a more heartfelt, true, integrous way. And we always made money more because of what you did to help us. And so sales is really important. And I say that because, when I work with entrepreneurs today, and they're like, well, I have a script and I have all these things. And then it only works for so long. And it's like, oh yeah, you got to learn your way. You got to learn the energy of your stuff.
I love that. Yeah, for sure. Totally relate 100%. So in all your ventures, many that have gone very well, if there was one colossal error or setback that stands out and what you took away from it, what would that be? One of the big, one of the like, oh my gosh, really?
My biggest, so I would say probably communication. And it's not because of what you think, because when people interact with me, they kind of make a lot of assumptions. They make a physical assumption, they make a judgment assumption about, what kind of successes I've had or haven't had, etc. And communication with your team, communication with the world, communication with your message, communication, and meaning taking all assumptions out of communication, right? So one of the things people do, even more so since AI has come along, is there are probably 100 times more assumptions and fewer words of all of the detail that need to occur in order for something to really work elegantly. And so I will give an example of a team member who there was one little element missing about something they're doing in our emails. And I was like, okay, we're going to create a process. We're going to create a system. Now, the person who was the ops girl should have actually already created this. And she's sitting there, well, I used to do this. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to get into this right now. That should have been done by now. And so I made her go through step by step by step, if this, then that, step by step by step by step. And there were some assumptions she was making, and when she was verbalizing it, and I said, and what does that mean? If I'm stupid and I don't understand, what does that mean? And then I had to pull it out of her. And so I think our skills of communicating relate to sales, relate to growing a business, relate to the world around us, relate to using AI well or unwell, because we make a lot of AI makes assumptions. It's an assumption machine about how somebody else can hear us or hears us. And so communication is energy first, and energy has to come first. And had I been frustrated, the team wouldn't have stuck with me while we were trying to get through this blip. Had I been frustrated energetically, they would have, and it would have created more of a rift. And so you have to learn energy first, and then you have to learn to continue that all the way through to the end, and then continue it again.
And tell us a little bit about mentorship and mentors that you've had and the people that you mentor. What's the value of that to a young entrepreneur?
It's paramount. And I say that because, well, my dad wasn't a great parent. He was a great mentor. And he and I talked about it. He knew that he was a horrible parent, and he would say, I'm just the worst. I was like, I know, thank God I figured it out on my own. And he's like, I know, thank God you did. We would have this joke that went back and forth. And that most parents and kids don't have that conversation, right? So I had that. I think another mentor I had was, obviously reading. I didn't have a lot of specific mentors. I had a lot of specific mentors that underestimated me and refused to help me as broadly as they could have. And so I had to figure it out on my own, which is really interesting. So that again goes to the assumptions somebody would have made about me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so when I help and mentor any of the people that I work with, I go above and beyond and 10x it and do it in ways that nobody they've ever met has ever done that for them. You know, whether they get mad at me for doing it, it actually helps them raise to a bar of success that they wouldn't have gotten to otherwise, or they would have had like 20 different people trying to help them get there. And I just look for deep mentoring to provide that in a way that is profoundly impactful for somebody's health, somebody's business, somebody's finances, somebody's energy, you know, somebody's relationship, etc.
And tell me what that looks like. Tell us a little bit, like give me an example of what deep mentoring kind of looks like for you, so we can get a sense of what we're looking for when we're out seeking mentors.
Yeah. Most people look first, you know, their health is not going right, then they're going to look for somebody in the health space. They're looking for mindset. Well, it's never about mindset, actually, ever about mindset. It's about mind shift and energy. So that's an interesting thing. So if you're talking to mindset, you got a problem. You know, somebody who's had success, financial success. You know, I mean, I've helped those companies get built and sold, and then, you know, tons of companies. I helped a couple billionaires. And people get to that. And you really got to have somebody who really has those kind of numbers. Somebody who knows a little bit about marketing, and they're not just a one-sided mentor. So I'll give you an example. So I have a guy who has a couple of dental practices, and the mentorship has included talking about how he systematizes, how he thinks about his team, how he interacts with his team energetically, how he interacts with his business partner, how he deals with his health. We actually talk about that. We deal with that. We have solutions for that. How he meditates. You know, how does he speak to his children? How does he interact with his wife? His wife and him, he wanted to get divorced. And I was like, no, we don't. We can solve this. Is solvable with all of these pieces. It's a puzzle that is a one puzzle. It's not multiple different puzzles. And so we took his business, doubled it in about a year and a half, and say in his relationship, you know, now he's having another baby. So, you know, and he said, I'm more connected to my wife than I've ever been. And I know it's through this work. I have more clarity. I'm actually creating systems for the first time. And his relationship with his partner has exponentiated. They're looking for another 2 practices to buy all of a sudden, because we're able to work through all of this. So when I deal with mentorship, it's like a whole pie, and it's really about doing the wholeness of the person and where their goal is. What was his goal, and what can I do to get him to that goal?
And as a sideline to that, and obviously you do a lot of work in this area, what about the personal development, professional development, making sure you're reading, listening, paying attention, whether it's podcasts, videos, books? How important is that for the person that's on their way up?
Oh, you guys might be mad at me. I think that your soul and you paying attention to your soul is going to get you further than you have ever allowed. And you can overdo it on podcasts, you can overdo it on videos, you can overdo it on all of these things for sure. I'll tell you, the guy that I was just talking about, I made him delete YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I made him delete all of his apps, because I was like, I want your soul to hear. I want your soul to really listen. Because he was saying, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? And we actually do a what about so much that we actually take the truth of what our soul has to offer, and we take that off the table. Somebody else is going to know that better. And it's like, well, maybe, but I think the right books with the right energy and the right teachings, not just the latest, and the right podcasts that are going to get you in that right frame, not just the bright and shiny, are really going to help you achieve something greater than you ever could because you're listening to your soul. I'm going to tell a little story of a snippet of a podcast I heard from a woman who is 103 years old. Who, have you heard of her, Gladys?
No, and I want to. Sounds great.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing. She's 103. She's still a practicing physician, MD, and she's a practicing holistic doctor. Still pretty amazing, right? Yeah. And that's somebody to be like, oh, that's important. And she said, I didn't understand the connection of the soul until I was 93. I didn't have the right words because I wasn't listening to my soul until I was 93. And I thought, dang, you just said everything I talk about regularly right there. She said, I had all of the things I needed, but I wasn't really listening. And I wasn't going in and talking about all of those things as a whole until I was 93. And I thought, geez, that's a long life, but glad you did it.
Right? For sure. So, okay, now we got our curiosity piqued here.
Yeah.
So give me 3 of those right books or right resources or right things that people could look to find some soul.
Yeah. I think one that's always good to read is called Autobiography of a Yogi. Why do I say that one? I say that one because it's about spirituality. It's about self-sufficiency. It's about doing weird crap that doesn't make any bloody sense to you. It's about going out on your own. It's about learning to get out of your comfort zone. It's a really good soul book, business book, marketing book. It's got all of those. You got to look at it from that lens when you read it, though. Or else,
who put that, by the way, just so that I have that?
Paramahansa Yogananda.
Okay, got it. I should have known that. Okay.
That's okay. I think that's a really powerful book. I think another powerful one that we forget about is we actually need to study prosperity daily. And I don't just mean an affirmation. I mean, we study it, right? And one of the people that I always go to is, her name's Florence Scovel Shinn. She's really simple. The Game of Life and How to Play It. Talks to you about the game of life and how to play it. There's a book that I found when I was teaching in Virginia. I was teaching a certification class in Virginia, and on the shelf on the wall there was a bookshelf, and I was like, oh my God, they have that book, and it was about systems and processes. Now I'm going to say this, I don't remember the name. I can give that to you if you want at some point, but the reason I say systems and processes, and it's old, is because I was a computer programmer when I was 14. So I think in systems and processes. And if you look at how anything grows and scales and gets bigger and doesn't break the entrepreneur or the startup person's back, it's systems and processes, right? And you have to learn a little bit of how to think in systems and processes. So something about systems and processes. And then the other one I think is, it's really good because a lot of entrepreneurs are broken, is, and I haven't read it, but I've had a lot of clients read it, called The Untethered Soul. And it really helps you take a little bit of what I'm saying and take my teachings or whatever I'm sharing and all the things I share to be like, oh, that's a different way of looking at it. So those are a couple to start with.
Those are good. And here's my fun question. With all the knowledge, experience, and wisdom that you have today, if we had this time warp machine and you could go back and speak to Sheevaun 20 years ago with all this wisdom, what would you want to share with her?
Well, 20 years I wouldn't say is long enough. So because I was doing all this stuff, so that's not fair. But
okay,
let's just say when I was 21 or something, is to what I would share is just take a little bit more risk, girl. Just a little bit more risk.
Say more about why.
Because Shall I tell this story?
Yes.
Okay. Because it wasn't until, so I moved to California and I got married and love of my life. And then about 5.5 years later, he died suddenly in an accident.
Hmm.
And so thank you. And so the thing that happened for me, and I can remember the incident instantaneously as I was told the news, and melting down the wall, was, you have nothing left to lose now. There's nothing left to lose. There is not one thing left to lose. And I remember hearing that and thinking, yeah. And it takes a while to unwind it and to go toward it. And because of hearing that, and then hearing somebody say, you're in a time when you have a lot of really amazing things opening for you, if you can just lean into those. That's not the words they use, but go toward those, say yes, that it will reveal everything. I mean, I believe I do everything today because of those, that you have nothing left to lose. Now, could I take more risks today? Sure. Yeah, I probably could.
Yeah, but maybe it's not necessary. I don't know.
Maybe not.
So question that it just seems like I would be remiss if I didn't ask, how, in your view, is this whole AI thing changing the journey of the entrepreneur? What should people pay attention to?
I love this topic because I have been immersed in it. Of course, I'm an ex-coder, so I'm geeking out. Mm-hmm. I think AI is really good space to take an idea, take a fragment of an idea, and get something else to populate some new ideas for you. But the thing that we're missing out on is we're saying AI is the thing, and AI is a thing, but I actually believe it's going to make us better as humans, because we're going to have to take away a lot of assumptions. Because if you know anything about AI or you played with it a little bit, prompts are a big thing, meaning you have to ask it an intelligent question to get an intelligent answer, or somewhat intelligent. And then you have to keep asking questions because it's going to give you weird garbage a lot of the time. And so it's going to make us, if we choose, right, to learn more, it's going to make us to think. If we choose, a lot of people aren't thinking. And if we get, it's the people who are going to think about it and use it and bring it forth and try to help simplify things, that will make it work in our favor. But that means we're actually going to have to get better at asking questions. Again, communication.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Final words from you, vision for the future that you have, something unique you want to share with the up and coming entrepreneur, whether they're a young entrepreneur biologically or simply a young entrepreneur based on their experience and I'm done with the rest of this mess, I'm going to do my own thing. What would you want to share with them as we wrap this up today? Great wisdom from Sheevaun.
Oh gosh, haven't I get? I would say really look and ask yourself on a daily basis where you're hiding. Where are you hiding in plain sight? And most people tend to hide in plain sight. Where are you hiding around money? Where are you hiding around time? Where are you hiding around ticking the box? Where are you hiding around getting your mission or your message out there? Where are you hiding? Because that's going to lead you to a place of revealing something, either to yourself or family member, whatever, that hasn't been revealed. Yeah.
Feeling something amazing about yourself. Incredible. Sheevaun, thank you so much for taking some time today with us. We deeply appreciate it. Very unique. Of course, I knew that was coming anyway. I was expecting that no matter what. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of it. Very thought-provoking, and deeply on behalf of the entire community. I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. And thanks again for giving us some kind of keen insights as to how energetic solutions actually work.
Mm.
Until the next time.